Good morning, brothers and sisters. So, today we're going to be talking about the fables, right? Maybe I can highlight some interesting things for you. This is the Apostle Paul writing to Titus, okay? Now, he's going on in verse 10 here of chapter 1. That there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, specifically they of the circumcision. Well, who's he talking about? They of the circumcision. Well, obviously, it was, so it's important to understand what the circumcision was about. The Lord gave this to Abraham, the circumcision of flesh, okay? And so they would circumcise all the boys on the 8th day, from Abraham clear to the Lord Yeshua, all right? That was the circumcision of the flesh, by which the Messiah would come in the flesh. After the Messiah came in the flesh, the circumcision was no longer necessary. Okay? Now, there's a lot of people, deceivers, specifically those of the circumcision, even till this very day, that say that you must be circumcised. Now, as we read in the book of Acts, this was debated by the apostles and talked about. The circumcision was from Abraham into Yeshua. They were all circumcised. All right. This was the covenant that the Lord Yeshua, the Messiah, would come in Abraham's line of flesh. Therefore, they had to circumcise themselves. Okay. All right. So we could get more on about that later. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. Now, he goes on to say that whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching them things which they ought not, for filthy lucre's sake. Okay. One of themselves, even a prophet of their own, said, the Creatines are always liars, evil beasts, slow bellies. This witness is true. Wherefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith, not giving heed to Jewish fables and commandments of men that turn from the truth. Well, what is he talking about here? He's not talking about the Torah. He's not talking about the Tanakh. He's talking about the Talmud and other writings. Now, whenever we go out into the forest, we like to do study, right? We study on mushrooms because if you eat the wrong mushroom, you could die. Okay? And you have to get your facts straight. You have to be accurate. It's, your survival guide. Well, the Holy Scriptures are your survival guide through life. Now, I'm going to show you something here. This, I ordered this because it had different copies of, apocrypha books, like the book of Jasher. Okay, so now in Jasher, I believe this is chapter 3. Here, I'll make sure that it's chapter 3. But I'm not telling you guys don't read these books. Read them. Read them. That's important. So this is Jasher chapter 8. They get into reading this book, and there's some interesting things in this book. All right, but it is a Jewish fable, and here we can go ahead and pick up on this right here. Now this is back. They claim it's a Tower of Babel. Right? And that Terah, Abraham's father, was buddies with Nimrod. Now, we know this cannot be true, but humor me here for a second. And the Lord was with Terah in this matter, Terah being the father of Abram, or Abraham, that Nimrod might not cause Abram's death, and the king took the child from Terah, and with all his might dashed his head to the ground, for he thought it had been Abram. This was concealed from him that day, and was forgotten by the king, as it was the will of providence not to suffer Abram's death. And then they go on, they're talking about how Abram goes and he lives with Noah and Shem. All right. And he grew up with Noah, and he grew up in this cave, and then he goes and he spends time with Noah and Shem. Now, if we look at this verse here in Jasher, and when Abram came out of the cave, he went to Noah and his son Shem, and he remained with them to learn the instructions of the Lord and his ways. And no man knew where Abram was. And Abram served Noah and Shem, his son, for a long time. Well, that would be impossible, since Noah and Shem were both dead by the 500 years before Abram was even born. Okay, and so I'm not telling you guys don't read this, because you could get some sort of textual things, and then you can understand why Paul was writing to Titus, about the Jewish fables, not giving heed to Jewish fables and commandments of men. Well, what about the commandments of men? Well, this would be the Talmud, right? The oral traditions of the law that created heavy loads and put them upon burden of men that turned from the truth, as Yeshua points out several times in his Sermon on the Mount. Anyway, so Jasher, should it be in the Bible? Probably not. Should you read it? Yeah, I think you should read it, because you get to understand what the scriptures are talking about when they talk about these fables. Because this is just one, and there are several, But I don't believe all apocryphal books should have been taken out. I don't think Enoch should have been taken out, and several other ones. But Jasher, for a surety, it doesn't match the timeline. You could tell this was somebody making up an old Jewish story, But it's just interesting to read them, have them in the back of your memory. They don't belong in the Holy Scriptures. But now Jubilees, on the other hand, I think the Jubilees, it harmonizes with the Scriptures. Genesis through Revelation, what we have today. But if you get your 1611 King James Bible, like I have right here, this is the 1611 edition, you'll notice that there are a lot of books in here. Let me see if I can get this queued up for you here. You have all, the familiar books that you have, all right, but also the books called Apocrypha, like 2nd Esdras, Tobit, Judith, the rest of Esther, 1st and 2nd Maccabees, the prayer of Manasseh, so on and so forth. The story of Susanna, the Song of Three Children. They included this, and should they be included? Why not? Read them. And then, of course, we have the New Testament, scriptures, But the Apocrypha, some of them, like I pointed out, you'll notice that Jasher is not in this book, right? Not even in the Apocrypha. But it's interesting whenever you start doing the research, and you could tell what harmonizes with scriptures and what doesn't, as you read it. Anyway, much love. Shalom, shalom. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye-bye.